Hello and welcome, and in this lecture we're going to look at EC2 security groups. So let's go into our AWS console and click on EC2, and we're going to click down here on security groups. You can also see it's in our splash screen here, and you can see two security groups. One is our default VPC security group, and the other one is the Launch Wizard security group, which we created when we created our EC2 instance. So we just click here. Now, a security group is basically a virtual firewall. It allows you to set inbound and outbound rules for different ports and you know, for different protocols. So by default, Amazon have configured it to deny everything by default. We did add in SSH, but by default everything is denied and all outbound access is granted. So you can see all traffic, protocol all, port range all, destination all. So what we want to do now is have a look at maybe we'll just create a simple web page or a simple text file that we're going to try and access via our public IP address. And we'll look at how security groups will allow or disallow us to have access to this page. So what we'll do is we'll go into our terminal window and we will connect to our Amazon EC2 instance. So I'm just going to use the command I've used previously. Now I'm going to elevate myself to root user status, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to install Apache, and Apache is just basically, it's like in IIS for Windows. Apache is just a web server, so I'm going to install the web server role. So I'm going to go yum install httpd, just say yes, and there we go. Now if I go to cd var www.html, that's the default place that where my web server is the root directory for my web servers. So if I go ls, there's nothing in there at the moment, so I'm going to create a just a simple text file that says hello world. I'll see if nano is installed on this, so we'll call it index.html, and nano is installed by default. We're just going to write in here hello world. Nano is basically like a text file editor. Now I'm going to hit Control X, and it will say, do you want to save your changes? Just hit yes. Okay, and we've created a text file called index.html. So the next step is we've installed a web server role. We will just check that the service has actually started. So we'll go service httpd status, and we haven't actually started the service. So we've installed the role, but we have to actually start the service in order for people to be able to access this. So this is a good thing, a good example for troubleshooting when you're trying to create your base Amazon images. Basically, you want to make sure that when you install a web server role, it will start up on boot, and you can do that using the bootstrap, or you can use a command in Linux. So what I will do is, first of all, I will start this service. So httpd, service httpd start. Okay, so it's now started the service, and now what I want to do is make sure that this service starts every time that I boot this or reboot this image. So I'm just going to type in the command to do that, and the command is check config httpd on, and there we go. So that means that when this Linux image reboots, it should start the httpd service. Okay, so we've created and we started our web service, but we still won't be able to access this, and the reason for that is that HTTP operates over port 80, and the only thing we're allowing universal access to at the moment is SSH. So we're going to need to create a security group in order to access it. So if we just go across to my web browser, and I'll just grab the IP address of my instance. Just copy that. Let's do it down here actually. Okay, now we're just going to open this up in a new tab. We're going to enter the IP address, and it's just going to hang. Nothing's going to happen. If you want, you could do /index, but it's in the root directory, and that's the root document anyway by default with Apache, so it will be trying to load that page, but it can't. And the reason for that is the firewall or the security group is blocking port 80. Any inbound request to that is being blocked. So what we want to do is open up that security group. So if we go back here, and often if you want to know what security group it's in, you can click on your EC2 instances, because you might have many, and then you can see here security groups down in the properties section. You can even click on view rules and it will show you what the rules are. So at the moment we can only SSH in. So if we just click on the link, that will open up the security group section. You can also get to it by clicking down here and then clicking on the Launch Wizard 1. So what we want to do is we want to open port 80 to the whole world. So we hit edit, and then we're going to add a rule, and we're going to go down here, and we don't need to know our port numbers, though it is a good thing to know, especially if you're a working solutions architect. It's good to know the most common ports, things like HTTP, HTTPS, SSH, RDP, SQL, MySQL, etc., DNS. DNS is 53, by the way, which is how Amazon's Route 53 gets its name, because it's the DNS service. It's named after the port number. And so we click on HTTP, and we're going to allow on TCP. Port range is just 80. Source is anywhere, so it's 0.0.0.0/0. Hit save. Okay, so that's opened it up. And now if we just go here and we refresh the screen, there we go, hello world. So now we can communicate with our web server, and people are now able to access it. So that's a really basic overview of our security group settings. What we will look at doing is how we can link security groups, and you may want to link security groups when you've got RDS instances inside their own security groups, and then you've got your web services inside their own security groups, and you want your web server to speak to your RDS instance. But we're going to do that in the hands-on database example. So that concludes this lecture. In this lecture we've learnt how to enable inbound security rules, and we've also learnt that everything by default is blocked inbound, and everything by default is allowed outbound. And we've also learnt basically how security groups work, what they are. They're basically virtual firewalls, and we've created and set up our first web server with our first web page which says hello world. Okay, so feel free to move on to the next lecture. If you have any questions, just click on the comments section, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you.